why you are actually, through this experience, brought all the way into the time tunnel to experience World Islamic Economic Forum 2017 for the first time ever in Borneo, in Sarawak, in Kuching. And because you didn't come here, so I'm bringing this special episode to bring you the best that we have at WIF 2017 and the best that we have with the inclusivity of World Islamic Economic Forum is Mr. Samba Batili. He wears many hats in many countries in Africa. He's like the champion in Africa to bring sustainability through renewable energy like solar. He helps places where infrastructure is a problem, but solar, you don't have to rely on grid, and you can power houses that can now store food, that can now have lighting for their kids to study, that can now also have extra means of income through the machines that they can have and be powered. But I want to go back all the way to when it all started for Mr. Samba Batili. And I've been to Africa, and people all over the world, especially in developed nations, have the luxury of straight away talking about the fourth industrial revolution. Many parts of the other world, Latin America, Asia and Africa, we're still trying to bridge the gaps that are very wide in the last industrial revolution, the second and the third. So there's education gap, there's technological gap, there's food production and security gap. And we know that it's not as simple as we can just get any technology. We have to buy technology at exorbitant costs sometimes, and now with patents and intellectual properties. So if you can go back all the way when you started all this, you know, you're a very successful businessman, many companies, even Aecon is working with you under Solectra for the lighting solutions of renewable energy. But what sparks all this? What sparked all this in you?
Okay, thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Samba Batili. I'm the CEO of ADS Group. ADS is Africa Development Solution. I started business when I was 24. That was back in 90s. My first business was import-export because I come from a business family. My father was involved into oil and rice trading.
This was in Mali?
This was in Mali. And then later on, I ventured into the pharmaceutical, into specifically generic products. This was from 95 to 98. And in 98, I came into IT and telecom. That's when IT and telecom started booming in Africa. And then in 2004, I came into the infrastructure. So this is where I started with ADS, yes, Africa Development Solution. So far from 2004 up to 2008, when I started the solar project, I was involved into many infrastructure projects. I helped structure many roads, many power lines, many buildings. It could be through public-private partnership and through concessional loan that I helped to secure for some government. And then later on, that's what you know, is in 2014, I started the partnership with Aecon. We put together the Aecon Lighting Africa initiative. That initiative today brought solar into more than 1,500 community in Africa. If you take the average of community we touch, is like each community, the average will be like, let's say, 5,000 people. So if you calculate more than 1,500 community, it's more than 10 million people, while our target at the beginning was 1 million people to touch.
This is across many countries?
This is across many countries, yeah. So with a unique model where we bring financing, we strengthen local content, local job, you know, and this, we create hope into the new generation.
Maybe people outside Africa, you know, maybe in cities like Kuching, they have not experienced not having power, not having electricity.
Yeah.
Can you know, enlighten us on how was the predicament of these 1,500 communities before Aircon Lighting Africa came to them?
Okay. Myself, if I will take the example myself, I grew up in, I can say, kind of wealthy family, so I didn't experience the lack of energy. But where I understand change in the energy, it's when I did my first project in 2008 of solar. So it was not a big project, but it's a project where I see the change, where people, young people, old people, they come spontaneously when the light came up. There is nothing that can compare to that, because for you and me who experience light from the early age, you don't feel it. But for someone that never see the light, if the first day you lighten up a village, you will see a big difference, because it's like you bring them to paradise.
Right. I have to go for the first break, but once we are back, how did you convince superstars like Aircon to look at, you know, the extreme problems in Africa? And nowadays, people say that Africa is the darling anyway. There's big investment coming from China. People are, you know, in competition to invest. So how do you look at Africa now? Because there are even predictions that maybe by 2030, African GDP now rising so fast, we'll see a lot of African countries moving into the middle income or even higher bracket for their nation. Let's talk about that after the short break.
Okay.
Welcome back to a very special discussion of Agenda AWANI right here at the World Islamic Economic Forum 2017 in Kuching. And Africa, where is it now? I mean, you with your Aircon lighting solutions and your infrastructure projects across many countries in Africa, you are the best, one of the best authority to tell us where is on average the development in Africa right now.
I think Africa, where it is today, it's to the turning point, because so far Africa was lacking of many things, and these years there is a new generation of Africa that's have opened their eyes because of technology development, because now we're living in a global world, and we have a lot of diaspora that coming back home and strengthen those economy. Africa is at a point today that it can drive the world economy, because you see, Africa today, we are 1 billion people, and you take a look at India and China. When they become billion, things start really to change. Okay. Because the critical mass is there. So nowadays, Africa, we have all kind of resource. The political environment is improving more and more. I think we are more than half of the continent now who's living in democracy, and more, you know, new generation of leaders are coming. So you have new generation of political leader and new generation of business leader. I think the match between this new generation of leader and new generation of business will change the continent.
This is the potential.
This is the potential.
Is the few hours ago when this recording was done, we heard of President Mugabe withdrawing himself.
Yeah.
Is that one of the main symptoms showing this change that you're talking about?
Yes, you see, as you can see yesterday all over the TV, you see the young population coming out. This is something that it's a strength for Africa. Today, 65% of the population is young. I was saying that to a conference last week. This young generation is an advantage if we use it well, because if you compare to other continents, like you take a country like Japan or Europe, where the population is getting old. Okay. Africa have a young generation. That means we have labor force, so we need to educate and train this labor force to compete on the international market. Yeah. So the youngest of Africa will change the continent because we have no other choice.
Okay. I get the new generation. I also see the potential of political reforms. We can see it turning. But like any other places in the country, in the liberal capitalistic system, if you already have capital, either it's land or resource or money, then you are very advantageous. But I'm sure many millions in Africa are those that do not have much. Yeah. So how can you develop, looking at the model of others that have done before you, not make the same mistake? Europe have wide gap from the industrialists of Germany to those in Greece and everywhere else. Asia, if you look at even China as a country, the mega cities are thriving, but the urban poor and the rural poor, the gap is there also. How can Africa do better?
How Africa can do better, we need to change our mentality. We need to think by ourselves. Nobody will come and develop Africa instead of Africa. That's have to be clear. Africans have to know that from day one. When you say Africa is poor, for me, Africa is not poor. Africa have all kind of wealth. So far, people was taking advantage of Africa. Now it's
taking back.
African to take back that. Yes, to open for the world, but we need to do win-win business with all these partners we have. You see, Africa, for the past 50 years, or for the past 1,000 years, the richest man in the world come from Africa. Till now, he's the richest man. You heard about Mansa Musa, the guy who went out with a caravan of gold. Till now, nobody have the same wealth, even Bill Gates. So it took African. That time, we didn't know foreign inclusion. We was the wealthiest continent. Now it took leadership and vision from African to get back to that level. Africa is the continent, we have gold, we have diamond, we have oil. So what we need to do a matching between a good leadership, good governance, and good business. And this is what we businessmen, we want to take back the business lead. Because before, what was happening into Africa, foreign company will come and take advantage of Africa and not sharing those wealth. How can you develop a continent without creating health and keeping the health? And also, we Africans, we have a fault. We make money, we spend money outside of Africa, we go vacation out of Africa, we go to get our health out of Africa, we get shopping out of Africa, even our own clothes. We don't buy our own clothes. Imagine we are a billion people. If each African was spending $100 in clothes, it's 100 billion industry. You take the commerce between China and Africa today, it's around 200 billion. So what can we do? We need to change our mindset. That's the first thing Africans should do. And then the development will come after.
Many things that synergize between Sarawak, Asia, and Africa. That's why we have the brotherhood. But we go for the last break once we are back. I also want to ask Mr. Samba Batili, while each community is trying to change mindset, thinking, education, industry, business, and otherwise, the world has changed. And now with the fourth industrial revolution, that's why disruptive change, the pace of change is faster. So the new wealth is not in the land or in the air or in the ocean. The new wealth, the new oil, they say, is data. And technology of big data, IoT, it doesn't reside much in Asia or Africa. It resides in the more developed nations. So how now do you think Africa can move all the things you have said, but also not be left behind in the new fourth industrial revolution? I will also give you a chance to let you give the points to your own sessions here that you will be deliberating, like Islamic finance and Waqaf and the role it can play in Africa right after this short break. Thank you for still tuning in to a special recording of Agenda AWANI right here at the World Islamic Economic Forum 2017 in Kuching, first time ever. I'm still here with Mr. Samba Batili, businessman, philanthropist. I think you're more than that because you're very passionate about Africa. But while all the things, and hopefully they will go on the right track, the world is changing. It's changing very, very fast. Even Europeans are disrupted, Americans also. How do you think Africa can also safeguard its interest in the new digital economy?
I think Africa have a big role to play in the digital economy. First, we have the youngest population. If you talk about digital today, who's more involved in digital? It's the youngest.
Young people.
Young people. So if you take, I give you an example. Africa have today more cell phone than any continent.
Okay.
And it's growing every day. So I think the digital economy will be something that Africa can do the gap matching, because youngest population, and today we have a lot of network of mobile. We have, I think, the biggest penetration of mobile. So if you take one of the good examples that Africa gives to the world, you take that mobile money. Mobile money starts in Africa. It starts in Africa. It's now becoming the something that is revolutionizing the payment system now in all over the place. So I think Africa can take the lead into the digital economy. That's why we are fighting today to get the three things together.
Okay.
First is the infrastructure. Myself, I'm involved into many fiber optic projects within Africa, because what I say to most of our government, the key thing we need to do is first infrastructure through the fiber optic network. We need to put that together. Okay. The second thing, we need to educate the new students, the new generation of African talent into IT, into anything that
big data,
analytic, you know. So that's a second point. The third point is the environment. We have to make a good environment for all these startups to grow, because there is no magical thing. Whatever you see a startup grow, it's a good environment for them to grow. But we have the population. Right. Because tomorrow, if you talk about e-commerce, we will be 2 billion in 2030. Okay. So bigger than China, bigger than India. So it's a big market, ready to be taken. We have natural resource that can fuel the economy. We just need to have, like I told you, a good governance and good vision of business. Okay. The two match together, Africa will take the lead in the economy.
In Sarawak, the state government, for example, has even set out their blueprint for digital economy. The first state in Malaysia. Malaysia is very committed, especially we have launched the first outside China digital free trade zone. We're working with Alibaba. How when I look at you, you do not talk about one country.
Yeah.
You talk about Africa as one union, one force. Yeah. But how do you bridge that from government to government? Do you need more businessmen like you going to different governments?
That's why we create Afro Champion.
Okay.
The vision of Afro Champion is to cut the barrier, because so far Africa has been lacking behind because of those frontiers. This was no frontier before the colonialism. African was trading together since century. You take the great empire of Mali from the year 1000, they have been doing commerce. So we need to come back to that. So there is no, it's a do or die. Yeah. We need to cut those barriers, do business together, trust each other, bring the wealth back to Africa. We don't need to bank outside of Africa. Right. And taking the wealth out of Africa. There's a lot to do in Africa. Right. So that's what I said. The first thing we need to do is to change the mindset of Africa.
And we do not have to follow the Western model.
No.
The subprime crisis in 2008 showed us that when you play with money without physical asset, the concept of Islamic finance, sukuk, how are you looking at it?
I think the sukuk is a good model. It's something very ancient, and this started years ago. So it's more based on human. You know, it's not just you do speculation. You know, and that's something that took us to the 2008 crisis. Yeah. It's speculation. You know, you're working on things that sometimes are not material, are not tangible.
Correct.
So thank God in Africa, everything that we're doing is tangible. Yeah. We have gold, what we're doing, we're selling gold. Yeah. We have diamond, we're selling diamond. We have oil, we're selling that. That's what brings us return. So I think now we should be more conscious about how we use those revenue into value creation for the new generation of Africa.
Okay. I want to use the last minute for you to give your opinion about WIEF. You can hear tribal ethnic music all around us. I can see the central former Soviet states also in front of me. Yeah. Plenty of pretty people, white, black. What is your own opinion about WIEF? Because I think diversity is key in the globalized world.
I agree. It's a good thing. Diversity can only enrich. My father was telling me, every day if you knew one person, it will just add something to your life. It will not take nothing out. So this world should be more open. We should do business. We should do fair trade. The world needs that. We need that for the world security. And a developed Africa is good for the security of the world. I was telling that to a conference with the European Union. I say today we need to develop Africa. This is key in the world security, because we have 12 million Africans that come every year on the markets, job market. We need to get them busy so at least they cannot cross. Today, you see the crisis in Syria, all this refugee crisis that people try to invade in Europe. Yeah. But Africa is more closer. We just have to cross the Mediterranean.
Yes.
So for the interest of the world, we need a developed Africa.
Okay. My key takeaway, it is a new era, it's a turning point for Africa. Samba Baitili, I'm sure we're not going to see the last of you. You're going to be one of the personalities to look out for in the new resurgence Africa. Thank you so much for making time to be on Agenda AWANI. Thanks to you for watching. Send in your own views to all the social media platforms. Download our iOS or Android application. I'll see you in another special recording of Agenda AWANI at WIEF 2017 very, very soon. Good night and goodbye. Thank you so much.